Hello, I'm John Gaver, author of The Rich Don't Pay Tax, or Do They? And I would like to take a few moments to expose a very common myth that has been perpetrated about the fair tax. It's a myth that has been perpetrated by the DC tax and spend crowd, power brokers, and even the IRS, all of whom I should note have real reasons to fear the fair tax becoming law because they would all experience significant loss of power. Now, the myth that I'm talking about is that tax evasion would increase under the fair tax. But before disproving this myth, I would like to ask you for your cooperation for just a moment. Imagine, if you will, that this myth is true. And further, I would like to ask you to consider a worst case scenario. Get a number in your mind about how much worse you think tax evasion might be if, big word here, if this myth were true. Could it be 10% worse? Could it be 50% worse? Could it be double or even more? You choose your own number. Just make it the worst that you can imagine it becoming, within reason, of course. I mean, don't go off the deep end, but just make it a likely worst case scenario. And then keep this number in mind. It's going to be important in a minute, because as you'll see in a few moments, the fact is that far from tax evasion being worse, there will actually be much less tax evasion under the fair tax. Now, before we begin our proof, we need a benchmark. And for that, we'll use published IRS data. According to the IRS, we currently have roughly 157 million unique taxpayers. And since under any form of income tax, it takes only the person filling out the form to commit tax fraud, each and every taxpayer represents an opportunity for tax evasion. Now, I should also point out that this number doesn't change substantially even under a flat income tax. Only the rate we pay changes, but the number of opportunities for tax evasion remains roughly the same even under a flat income tax. So let's look at how this changes under the fair tax. All totaled between corporations, sole proprietors, partnerships, and so on, there's approximately 25 million retail businesses in the United States. And each of these businesses becomes an audit choke point, since under any form of sales tax, for tax evasion to occur, at least one of those 25 million retailers would have to be involved. That translates to 1/6 as many opportunities for tax evasion under the fair tax as the 150 plus million opportunities that exist under any form of income tax, even a flat income tax. What this means is that for tax evasion to be as bad under the fair tax as under any form of income tax, 6 times as many people would have to be willing to commit tax fraud. That's not going to happen. Now, you may find this impressive, but don't get too excited just yet because we're just getting started. You see, one person acting by himself cannot evade a sales tax. For tax evasion to occur under any form of sales tax, it takes at least 2 people acting in concert, either the retailer and his supplier or the retailer and his customer. So this means that for tax evasion to be as bad under the fair tax as under any form of income tax, it would not take just 6 times more people being willing to commit tax fraud, but 12 times more. Imagine a 1,200% increase in the number of honest people trying to evade taxes. Come on, that's really not going to happen. Yeah, are you impressed yet? Well, just wait, because it gets better. From the 45 states where sales taxes are currently collected, we know that just 10% of all retailers, primarily the big box stores and the national chains and such, provide roughly 90% of all sales tax revenue. And in those businesses, the same elaborate point of sale systems used to track inventory and prevent employee theft and stuff like that make sales tax evasion virtually impossible. So it's no surprise that this same data also tells us that almost all attempted tax evasion comes from those businesses that provide just 10% of sales tax revenue. What this means is that under the fair tax, only 10% of sales tax revenue comes from sources where tax evasion even can occur. So it follows that for tax evasion to be as bad under the fair tax as under any form of income tax, it would not take just 12 times as many people being willing to commit tax fraud, but a whopping 120 times more. So think back to that number that you came up with earlier. It's a safe bet that it wasn't anything even remotely approaching a 12,000% increase in the number of people willing to commit tax fraud. In fact, even the most jaundiced flat income tax supporters would be embarrassed to make such a preposterous claim that there would be a 12,000% increase in the number of people willing to commit tax fraud. It won't happen. But we're not done yet. It gets even better. Anytime that two unrelated parties collude to commit a crime, a second, more serious crime has been committed. It's called conspiracy. The Cornell University School of Law defines conspiracy as an agreement between two or more people to commit an illegal act. But the important point here is that it generally carries its own penalty, and that penalty is generally added on top of any other penalties that the court may impose, making the total sentence more severe. So what this means is that for tax evasion to be as bad under the fair tax as under any form of income tax, 120 times more people would have to be willing to commit a more serious crime, conspiracy to commit tax fraud. But wait, it doesn't even end there. You see, tax auditors who've audited both income taxes and sales taxes tell us that it's far easier to spot attempted tax evasion under a sales tax than under an income tax, because under a sales tax, there are no elaborate tax shelters, loopholes, abusive trusts, offshore accounts, or any of the many other things that income tax auditors would have to deal with. It's very straightforward. Also, as mentioned earlier, sales tax evasion takes two people, and as we all know, a secret is only a secret until a second person knows it. For all these reasons and more, it's much easier for auditors to catch sales tax evasion than income tax evasion. So think back to your original worst-case scenario, because in the end, and yes, we're now getting to the end, what this all comes down to is that for tax evasion to be as bad under the fair tax as under any form of income tax, not only would 120 times more people have to be willing to commit a more serious crime, but one that is more easily detected than income tax evasion. Think about it. It's not going to happen. So anytime that someone tries to tell you that tax evasion would increase under the fair tax, you know that they're trying to perpetrate a myth. Go back through this video again and work the numbers for yourself. It cannot be denied. The facts shatter this myth because they show that there is no possible way that tax evasion can help but be dramatically reduced under the fair tax. I encourage you to learn more about the fair tax. Check out fairtax.org. Then, to learn even more about the fair tax, I encourage you to read The Rich Don't Pay Tax, or Do They? Also, watch for the upcoming book, The Tax Deception. Both books are filled with the same easy-to-follow logic that you've seen in this video. But whatever you do, I urge you to support the fair tax and candidates at all levels of government who support the fair tax, and oppose those candidates who are pandering for votes by peddling a flat income tax scheme that they know won't stay flat. The fair tax is the only tax reform plan that makes further tampering with the rate politically hazardous. It will dramatically improve tax compliance and will absolutely abolish the IRS. Thank you.